Benghazi cover-up becomes increasingly more disturbing. So does the language the president continues to use when describing the violence. Now, he's already called it a mere bump in the road, and now he continues to misspeak. Now, listen to what he said on The Daily Show last night.
I would say, even you would admit, it was not the optimal response, at least to the American people, as far as us all being on the same page.
Well, here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
If 4 Americans get killed, it's not optimal.
Wow, that's cold. Not optimal? Well, the latest gaffe is not going unnoticed by the mother of fallen U.S. diplomat Sean Smith, who is blasting the president's outrageous comment. She says, quote, "It's insensitive to say my son is not very optimal. He's also very dead. I've not been, quote, optimal since he died, and the past few weeks have been pure hell." Now, I'm hoping Monday's foreign policy debate will delve heavily into this subject because the president owes this mother and the other families and the American people the truth. Here with reaction and some advice for Governor Mitt Romney ahead of this debate, Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer. I don't even know how to describe how cold, detached that statement is. I wanted to get your reaction, Charles.
Oh, I agree with you, and I don't blame the mother for being deeply disturbed to have this kind of throwaway line applied to the death of her son in the service of her country. You know, from Romney's point of view, the reason that I think he didn't win the debate, the second debate, is because he had this tremendous opening on the Libya question. It was a hanging curveball, and he missed it. And, you know, it had to do with Obama saying that he was offended by even the suggestion that he or anybody on his team had misled the country on Libya, which, of course, is a complete falsehood. Romney didn't get to swing and hit that this time, but he's got the extraordinary luck that he's got one more shot at this in the third debate, which will be about foreign policy. And I think this is his real opportunity to make the point about presidential leadership, presidential honesty and candor, and also about the collapse of the Obama policy in the Middle East, which is all sort of symbolized by the Libya debacle.
Yeah, look, this is obvious because our intelligence community, they're angry, and they're not telling the American people the truth. They knew within hours. We know that the State Department was watching this in real time. And then we know 5 days after what happened with Susan Rice. We know what Jay Carney was saying. We know what the president was saying 14 days after. Asked a direct question, is it terrorism? When he was on The View with Joy Behar, he still could not say it was terrorism. So the question then becomes, why? They had to know. Why lie?
Well, I think they had 2 reasons to lie. The first reason was the fact that the September 11 attack occurred 1 week after they had just spent 4 days in Charlotte dancing on the grave of bin Laden. Remember, this is their single foreign policy achievement. There is none other. Look at Iran, look at Russia, look at Israel, look at Syria, look at the Arab Spring. It's all in collapse. So they got one thing to argue, and they sure argued it, where they made the point again and again and again with that ridiculous slogan from Vice President, bin Laden dead, GM alive. Because what Libya said, what it was proclaiming to the world, and the reason the attack was launched in the first place was to say bin Laden dead, al-Qaeda alive.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened as a result of leading from behind in Libya. You've got, you know, al-Qaeda has essentially, one of the jihadist factions has taken over northern Mali. There are training camps throughout North Africa. And we now know about the rise of the strength of the jihadists in Syria, where Obama's again been leading from behind. The second thing is, and I've heard this from my liberal colleagues on some of the other shows I've done, is, well, how could they have done this? Why would they be lying? Wouldn't they know it would all come out? And the answer is no. They saw what the mainstream media did right after the attack. And you know what they did. They spent 3 days attacking Mitt Romney for a statement he issued the next day in which he denounced what the Cairo embassy had released, the apologetic statement that was made. So the media went ahead and spent 3 days ignoring the attack, ignoring the implications, and concentrating always on that. So they think they've got the media in their pocket. The election is coming up. They simply have to run out the clock, and they'll be scot-free.
Can I ask you?
They'll be home free, and that's what they thought. However, it was you and others and Brett Baer and Fox which kept this story alive because we kept finding out what really happened. And now the mainstream media have been shamed into covering it themselves.
It was neither spontaneous, as they continue to claim for weeks, nor was it related to this movie trailer that had been released in July. It never made sense to me in the beginning, considering all of this was happening coincidentally on the anniversary of 9/11. How do you assess, first of all, are you getting your inbox filled with things like I am? People suspect the worst of this president. Now, I think if you'll accuse somebody of murder or suggest it or say they're a tax cheat with no evidence or say that their plan is for dirty air and water and throwing Granny over the cliff and all of these things, why do people suspect that there's going to be some action? Sort of wag the dog, because that's the only way that the president, they think, can get out of this. Are you getting the same comments from people as I am?
Well, no, I'm not sure I do. Perhaps I hang out with the wrong crowd.
You're hanging out with those D.C. insiders there, Charles.
I know. It's a real problem. All the cocktail parties, it's exhausting. You know, downing all the canapes.
I haven't been to one Washington Correspondents' Dinner. Go ahead.
I mean, you know. So, but look, I think it is possible you'll get some kind of action. Although you got an administration that says we're going to hunt them down. And this morning in the New York Times, they're sitting in an open coffee shop in Benghazi with the guy who presumably was leading the attack, completely unafraid and in the open. So it's a hell of a hunting them down that's going on now. It's possible that something like that will happen. But I think what's really going to happen is they're going to try to run out the string on this. They can get past the debate. They'll hope it will fade away and it'll all be about the economy and they can just eke it out at the finish line.
All right, Charles Krauthammer, always good to see you. Thank you, sir. And coming up, a lot of news tonight on Hannity. Bill Clinton offers another reason why Mitt Romney needs to be elected. Now, he already told us the governor clearly has the experience threshold, and he has met that for the Oval Office. We have his latest verbal slip coming up next. And Karl Rove is here with his ever-changing electoral map, and it is starting to look a lot more red. And we also have the latest polls from around the country. Is the race now beginning to slip away from President Obama? We have the details coming up straight ahead.
I was in the ambulance.